The most successful people in the world all have one thing in common. They've learned how to think big by developing a perspective of possibility. And the good news is, we all have the potential to apply the same strategies to achieve amazing things in our work and lives. Hi, I'm Rob Hartnett, and as your Chief Possibility Officer and host, I'm here to inspire you to become the star of your world as a person of possibility, through learning how people from all areas of life are thinking big and chasing down their dreams. And I am beyond excited this morning, beyond excited, because I have with me, you've probably seen her all over the place, all over social media, especially over LinkedIn, but this is the amazing, today our special guest is the amazing Lorraine Kaylee. Welcome, Lorraine.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited we finally made this happen.
Yeah, we finally got it to happen. Now, where are you coming from today?
I'm in San Francisco. What about you?
Excellent. I'm actually down on the Mornington Peninsula in Melbourne. So just a little bit further south.
Yeah. You said morning, and I was like, oh, okay. So it's your Saturday. So thank you for doing
actually,
this.
So it's the morning in the Mornington Peninsula. It's very good. You're very smart. No wonder you're so good. Hey, look, I wanted to talk about the book first of all, Unforgettable Presence. I love it. It's a great book. I've written a few, so I know how hard it is, but we're going to talk about that a bit later on. But I love the book. It's so contemporary. It's so for this moment. It doesn't matter where you are in your career. You can be, kind of at a super high trajectory. You can be starting out. There is stuff in this book. I just don't think I could tell you how many people I've recommended it to. You just said, people go, hey, what are you reading? What are you reading? What book? And I go, you've got to read this. You've got to buy this. And I've had people literally go, right, I'm on Amazon now. I'm buying Lorraine's book. So kudos to you. It's fantastic. One, why did you decide on a book in this era of podcasts and streaming? You went for a book, and how long did it take you to put it all together?
It didn't take me a crazy long amount of time. So it took me, let's say, from when I signed the contract with Wiley to the actual publication. So I signed in March of last year, and the book came out late April. So just a little over a year from start to finish, which is crazy. And writing a book was not something that I had initially planned for myself. It was not on my bingo card. And what ended up happening was while I was at the last company, my last corporate company, Prezi, I had come out with my first LinkedIn learning course. And I published it. I was super excited. And an old colleague from an earlier company reached out to congratulate me. And he sort of made this joke like, oh, when's the book coming out? And then I thought, maybe that makes sense for me. Like that does sound pretty fun. And I think there's something really special about having, and also like what leads to the pressure of writing a book, having all your ideas and best practices and tips and knowledge in this really physical thing, organized, right? So people can just flip through and find what they need because, you're writing newsletters, LinkedIn posts, etc., but you have to kind of cobble all the information together. So the book, it just felt right when he said that. And then a few weeks later, I met another colleague. She was an executive at Google at the time. And then she brought it up too. She said, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I thought, okay, you're the second person who mentioned this. Like, I need to do this at some point. So I ended up,
classic.
Yeah, exactly. So I ended up getting laid. Oh, go ahead.
Keep going. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah. So I ended up getting laid off a few months later. And that was when I decided to start my own business. I started trying to self-publish the book and writing, it's very generous calling it an outline, but just some ideas. And I just thought, this is too hard. I want to wait for a traditional publisher and just get some guidance along the way. And then a year into my business, that's when Wiley first reached out on LinkedIn, and then a few other publishers reached out. And then I took it as a sign from the universe, even if I felt a little bit nervous, even if I felt maybe not quite ready, that I should take advantage. And this was the time to write it.
Oh, 100%. Wiley reaching out. I was going to ask you about that. How did you get in contact with Wiley? So it was through your LinkedIn posts and through, was there a particular post that they reached out that was the trigger? Do you know?
They never asked. I don't think so. I think generally they like people who have a strong LinkedIn presence and people who are posting regularly, right? Because these are people who they can tell like to get their thoughts and get their voice out there. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I'm going to ask you a quick question here, slightly off topic. When you say posting regularly, how often are you posting on LinkedIn?
Good question. So I actually just cut it down. I was posting about 6 times a week, and now it's 4 to 5. That's a lot for someone, especially if they're starting off. I would not recommend 4 to 5 to start or 4 to 6 because it is a lot and it can lead to burnout. So For anyone who's just starting out, I would set the bar much, much lower than that, and just get familiar with it, get used to it, and then over time you can grow to that number.
I think I'm probably posting about 4 times a week. I
Yeah.
must say I do try and post something that I find relevant. I don't post for
Yes.
posting's sake. If I come across
Yeah.
something or an idea, I'll post. So it's probably four. You'd be about 4 times a week. Um, uh, back on the book. Do you know the guy? Do you know John Maxwell, the leadership guru? He's written 32 books. He's one of Amazon's biggest ever sellers.
I've heard the name. Yeah.
You would have come across it. John's writing. I've been a student of John's and I'm part of the John Maxwell team and studied under John in the US a number of times. And I really love his stuff. But John has a great way of talking, and he talked about writing books, and he's written so many. And one of the questions he was asked once, he was actually doing a speaking gig, finished the speaking gig, and a lady came up to him and said, "John, I just wanted you to know that fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I've actually got your very first book you wrote." And John said to her, "I'm so sorry. I'm so much better now. I'm so sorry for that book." And John said it literally had, I think it was something like, maybe it was like 1,500 words, and it had 15 chapters. Right. Right. So when you talk about an outline, John said, I wasn't writing very much. I was the next chapter. And he said, so I had to apologize. He goes, "Oh, can you please sign?" And he goes, "I'm so embarrassed signing it." He said, "I've come such a long way." And so the point he was trying to make is you do the best you can at the time. And he said, that book was the best that was in me. I couldn't have written it any better. I didn't try and write a bad book, but I've come on this journey. I now look back at it and I go, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm on board. Like, how do I even sell that?" But the point is we only do what we can do. And I'm sure your next one or third one, whichever one you go and do, you'll look back and go, "Oh yeah," and you'll write it faster too. I think that's the other thing I've learned. You get better you go the outline. You know how to do it better, irrespective of AI. But you actually get better at actually being able to chunk it down. So I think a year is amazing, but I guarantee you'll write your next one in less than a year for sure.
TBD on the second book. We got to get through this the promotion for this first one first. But yeah, no, to your point, like once you do the thing that's new, then it's not new anymore. And then like even, I'm very proud of this book, and also I'm thinking of, oh, yeah, I could have included this story. Maybe I'll include it in a future edition, or oh, I'm like actually brainstorming a new framework that's still connected to the book, but yeah, it's just you're growing and constantly learning and iterating along the way.
Yeah, for sure. And I like the way you've done the book, though. You've done the book in a really, what I call a hybrid book, really well, with the QR code and the links back, because that keeps it dynamic. It allows you to be flexible. So, again, if you're a budding author out there, and just have a look at the way Lorraine's written this book. It's fantastic the way you've actually written that, and you block it really nicely. I love the summaries in it. And so you've written it for people who are like, I speed read, or I need to go back to a chapter and have a look. And I've done that a few times. I've gone, I think Lorraine wrote something on that. And so I'll go back to your book and have a look. So yeah, kudos for that. Hey, let's talk about leadership. Leadership in 2025. You spent a lot of time with a lot of very good leaders, and probably some bad ones as well over your years. Tell me, in 2025, what are say the three great traits of leaders today that you see?
The first one is someone who wants to be in that position and understands how important it is, especially when it comes to developing your team. There's so many people who will take that management position because that's maybe the most natural way to move up at a company, but they don't actually really care about, all of the people part of it. So wanting to be in that position, I think, is really critical and really important. I would say connecting with your teammates on a human level, so having that empathy, and again, work is important, but also we're people first, and so understanding what we're going through individually, understanding each other as people, I think that is a really important skill as well. And then communication, and especially transparency in communication. With so many changes happening in a workplace, it's very critical that we are as vulnerable, as transparent as possible, because people can smell that if something's not quite right or you're hiding something. And so that's a hard skill, but an important one. And I think that when you can approach leadership with that mentality, it leads to more trusting and happier teams. Even if it's not good news, they're happy that they got the actual news from you, right?
I really loved a couple of things you said. First off, you kind of brushed over it, but I thought it was actually a really important point, which was you want to lead, so you want to be there. But the second thing is you want to develop your team. That's
Yeah.
so important. And so many
Yeah.
leaders are like, right, I'm going here. I'm going to lead this team. Do you have the
Hmm.
intention of developing? No, I'm going to develop myself. No, you know what? And so I love the fact that you said that. So I think the first one was great. The second one, so it's probably four, isn't it? You want to do it, but you also want to develop your team. Which if you want to develop your team, you got to go, well, I haven't developed them if I don't know them. So I've,
Yeah.
by inference, got to know them. And I think the comms one's a really interesting one. I found, I don't know if you saw this, but during the pandemic, I was working with a number of leaders. And what surprised me was there are some of them who are really high performance leaders who are rated quite high, started to get rated poorly from their team. And the reason why is because they weren't communicating and they weren't being vulnerable. And when I spoke to these leaders who I had great admiration for, I said, you know what? Your team's kind of not in a great place right now because they're not hearing from you. And the leaders to a T said, I know, I'm just trying to get all my ducks in order. I want to have the right story for them. I'm challenging my leadership. I'm challenging above. So when I action talk to them, I've got a great story. And I said, you know what? Keep doing that in the background, but you got to keep
Yeah.
talking to them right now. Tell them how you feel. So I think
Yes.
that vulnerability, empathy of just keep the communication going. Like, I'm in this with you. We're here. This is what I'm doing. And I think that some of the best leaders said, given the information we have right now, and I have, this is what we're going to do. So
Yeah.
I think you've got to actually lead. Some leaders forget to lead. And it
Yeah.
may not be right. Do you find that some leaders they almost go for too much consensus and don't actually lead?
For sure, yeah, it's about making sometimes the hard decisions and yeah, maybe it's not the popular one, but and then you have to explain and still get people bought in and moving forward and yeah, that's the hard part of leadership.
And
That's
it's
when not
such a
everyone's
great point.
suited for it. Yeah.
I know, but isn't it? But the other thing that frustrates me is a lot of people call it soft skills, right?
Mhm.
And like twice already, you've called them hard skills, which I love because it is actually a hard skill. It's a hard thing to do to communicate bad news. It's a hard thing to do to say, hey, you know what, we're not in a great place right now, and have what I call that optimism for the future, like reality of where we are, not blind optimism, but realistic optimism. Know where we are, but here I think is where the future. And I think they are. I agree with you. They're super hard skills. If they were that easy, everyone would do them, right? So,
Exactly.
and they
Exactly.
don't. Gen Z's, God, I've got three sons, all Gen Zs, right?
Nice.
And I speak to lots of people who have kids with Gen Z, and you spend a lot of time with them. One of the things I'm coming across, and I don't know whether this is just in Australia, but I suspect not. A lot of Gen Zs are feeling inadequate. They feel like they haven't achieved enough. They feel like they should have been doing more. They should have more money, have more materialistic things, be further in their careers. They should have produced so much more. Have you come across this?
I can totally see that, especially with that generation, especially in this age of social media, blessing and a curse, right? Blessing, oh, I can see what's possible, and there's all these ideas, and there's all this information out there. And also, it really makes you susceptible to the comparison trap, right? Like, oh, I'm seeing all these people doing these amazing things, and oh, this person's making six figures in a month, and this and that. And I think being aware that the comparison trap exists is very important and also remembering social media is social media, right? So there's so much that's happening behind the scenes. And just because someone says something doesn't mean it's actually true, right? That they've had, they're making millions and millions of dollars in a
Right,
year.
right.
And so when we can understand that the comparison trap exists, hopefully that allows us to focus more on ourselves because we can only control what we can control. And I think it's really important to remember that, but totally get that it is very easy to, and it happens to me too, right? You're on LinkedIn, everyone's getting promoted and this and that. But you don't want to expend all that mind, space, and energy, focus on someone else, right? Use that and build something great for yourself.
I think it's good advice, and a lot of them, and I'll just speak to them about that, and I'll say, yeah, but how do you not do comparison? Like, and it's hard because you either don't do social media, which is not an option for a lot of us, any of us today, especially if you're marketing a business or you've got a startup or you're doing something, you have to be there. A couple of my sons have sort of to detox for a while.
Oh,
One of them actually, he's very high profile on. He has to be on it, but he also detoxes for a while from it. But it's very
good.
hard, isn't it, to say stop looking over there, just focus on yourself. I find that I think it comes with maturity. Would I be right? Do you think that's the case?
It is super hard. I think it's part of it might be maturity, right? Like you're just in the business for longer, you've been working for longer, so you kind of understand. You just see more things in life, and you're like, okay, this person seems great on the surface, and then you build relationships, right? And then you talk to this person, you're like, oh, they're actually like struggling a lot with X, Y, and Z on the back end, and oh, they might have had a great month, but oh, maybe they were bankrupt for the first 3 years
Right.
of their business. Like you just don't always
Right.
have the context, and so it reminds me, you mentioned, Rob, I got to interview so many different leaders for my book. And one of them was Daniel Pink, who's a 7-time New York
I
Times
love
bestselling
Daniel Pink.
author.
Yeah.
Amazing guy. Yeah. And he talked about imposter syndrome in the book. And he said, imposter syndrome is comparing our insides to someone's outsides. And that's just a game you cannot win. So when you remember it and think about it in that context, like we just literally have just no idea what's going on. It's not an apples to apples comparison.
No.
And so hopefully that's a helpful mindset shift if anyone's sort of feeling that way.
That's a really good point. I love that comment. The other one I got from I think it was in your book from Daniel was around the speaking side. Is that super know your audience, keep it
Yep.
simple, make it shorter.
Hmm.
I have
Hmm.
that on a
Yep.
banner in my office now because
I do.
I am want to kind of get so excited about my audience. I want to give them everything, and so and when you get into a subject
That
matter
too.
expertise like
Yeah.
you want to go less. But another question a bit later on. You talk about one-on-ones. I thought it was really helpful. When you're talking with leaders and their people, and you talk about getting to know them and having one-on-ones. You had a bit of a model for doing a one-on-one as well in the book. But one of the things I thought was really good was you suggested to the employee, if you will, that they should take charge of the one-on-one. Can you take me through that? Because I rarely see it, and I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I used to think that one-on-ones were a time for me to update my manager, but that can be done asynchronously. So you can send them a Slack message, a Teams message, an email, and that's something that they can read over, right? The live time that you have with your managers is really precious, and it should be to talk about things that can only be solved or discussed by talking live, right? An updates meeting that's again, that can be async. And so it really empowers, I think, as a leader and a manager, when you tell your employee you're in charge of the one-on-one, it's a form of coaching them, right? And helping them step into a more leadership position. But it
Right.
really empowers them to say, okay, like these are the questions I have, or these are the roadblocks I have, or these are the career topics that I want to speak on. And it's their chance to own that conversation. I think that's such an important piece where it's not, again, just wasting time with updates and just, yeah, things that you can just read in an email, but it's about
Yes.
building those relationships, getting the feedback going, having the back and forth. That is just such a way to stand out and also to practice leading a meeting, practice ownership, acting more like a leader. So many good things come from that.
And also, I think in there, I just to just make sure I got that right. One of the things you suggest also is putting the agenda up. So we're coming up for our one-on-one. Here's the things that I'd like to talk about and cover.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good because one of the other things that you and I are both passionate about is building a culture of feedback. And I find that people who want to, I get a question often, how do I get a growth mindset culture? And I said the fastest way you can do it is actually get a culture of feedback in your organization where people are asking for the feedback proactively. Because what I've found is, and I'm sure you found this as well, is that people generally don't like receiving feedback, the word feedback, and they also don't like giving it. It's the
Yeah.
other thing.
Yeah,
So
it's hard, both
it's
sides. Yeah.
it's hard on both sides, isn't it? Yet if you have it one where someone's requesting, hey, can you help me? I think you use some words in here like, can you help me? Can you give me a bit of advice
Advice.
on
Yeah.
this? So
Yeah.
what would you suggest?
Hmm.
Um, you know yourself when someone asks you that, even if it's a friend, you go, "Oh yeah, tell you what I do." Even if you notice it, you might go, "Oh, that was a little bit," or "I wouldn't do that," or "I changed that." You don't say anything because you're nice, right? But if they
Yeah.
actually said to you, "What would you? How can I improve that bit there?" or "What would you suggest?" I feel more comfortable anyway to go, "Oh, I'll tell you what, one thing you could try."
Yeah.
So has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, it's so important building a culture of feedback. And I get so frustrated with companies that one, only have the annual review, so once a year. And then two, in the annual reviews, they have the pre-made questions that are just so broad and generic. And no one's what constructive feedback do you have for me? Oh, okay. What am I supposed, what am I referencing? Like, what do you want me to
Yes,
talk
yes.
about? Like, So it becomes really hard for me, the feedback giver. And then if you, Rob, are asking me for feedback, like it's whatever I say might not be helpful to you. So to your point, there's ways to reframe how you're asking it to make it
Mhm.
a little bit less scary, destigmatized, because it is hard to ask for it and to hear it, right?
Yeah.
So asking for advice, giving a scaled system on a scale of 1 to 5. How confident did I seem in that presentation? If not a 5, what would have made it a 5? What can I try differently next time? So I'm not necessarily saying that you did something wrong, but here's something to experiment with next time. So there's all of these different ways that you can reframe it, and really it boils down to specificity, right? We're not asking for broad strokes questions, so it makes it more helpful for you, the feedback asker, and helps the feedback giver give you the right feedback. And then it's something that you're going to want to continue to do regularly. So in the book, I talk about finding your feedback circle. These are people who are invested in your success. They will be honest with you. They want to see you win. And so anytime you can have those people who you can go to regularly, ask for feedback ahead of your next meeting. Oh, I want to work on this. Can you just keep an eye out for me? That's going to be super helpful to get some more of that continuous feedback and create more of that culture.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think on the culture of feedback, when you're wanting to get feedback or advice and help using different words, it's really important to go, who do I want it from? Like, what am I actually trying to achieve here? So I think that then you have that circle is a really good way of putting it, because there are different people for different things. You know, you might trust someone over here, but you trust another person over here. I use a little acronym I use called TRUE, TRU, for feedback. I want it to be timely, relevant, and useful. Right. I think
Yeah.
feedback gets given like for something. And I saw you do something last month. I'm thinking, what did I last month? Right.
Yeah.
So and also if it's not relevant to the conversation or the client I'm with or those circumstances, it's hopeless. And so, and the last one's the most important, which I really got from, I don't know if you've read Arnold Schwarzenegger's book, which is actually called Useful. And it's
Okay.
a wonderful book. I mean, and Arnold, I love Arnold. I think he's fantastic. But even Arnold, I think he's one of the most optimistic people around. Arnold spends, I think it's like 2 chapters on positivity, on how he has to talk to himself to remain positive. And I think, well, God, if Arnold has to do that, we all should be doing probably 3 chapters. But he had this thing like, be useful. How can I be useful to people?
Yeah.
How can I? So that's a really interesting. That was actually his father taught him that. It was just like, be useful, Arnold, right? But it was like, if I can, how can I be useful to my team? I think that if there's a leader doing that, how can I actually add value to them? How can I be useful in this circumstance, which might be a shoulder to cry on? So you're going from like, you can be a cheerleader, you can be a coach, you can be their advisor, you can be a therapist. It's the whole thing. Yeah, I love it. One other aspect that I like to ask people about, especially someone as experienced as you, is recommendations, suggestions, thoughts around leading leaders versus leading followers and the difference between the two.
You mean like leading managers or leading
Yeah,
people who?
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're a people leader, but you're leading other people leaders. And I find a lot of leadership training focuses just on leading followers. But there's a big difference between leading followers versus leading other leaders of people. And I just wonder if you've had any thoughts on that and seen any experience of where the shift, what can happen.
One of the things that I think is most important to think about when you're leading leaders is just the profile that you have within a company, and realizing that people are paying so much attention to your actions, to your presence, to the little things that you say. So an off the cuff comment in a meeting, oh, we might want to look into that. People are going to take that really seriously and start like spending hours like researching
So
whatever,
true.
that often, and you don't even remember that you said that, right? So I think there needs to be sort of an extra layer of intentionality with the way that you are showing up, whether it's in person or virtually. Because yeah, when you reach that point, leaders of leaders, that's amazing. And that also means that you're probably quite high up in the organization. And so there's just a different awareness that you have to have in terms of how others perceive you.
That's a really great point. I think that, and as you go more and more senior, I've seen that. I mean, people pay attention at leaders. They're watching leaders. They're looking at what you say on LinkedIn. They're looking at your social media. They pay super attention, and the more senior you go, and I think it's a really good point. I don't know if you ever saw this quote, but I thought it was a great one from Jamie Dimon, who's the head of JP Morgan, and he made this great point, and he said that when he's making a change or a transformation in the business, even if it's a small one, if
Yeah.
he changes his rhetoric and his spiel between what he says in New York and what he says in the Hong Kong office, by the time he's flown back to New York, all chaos has broken out. And he might
Yeah.
just change the word slightly because he got bored with it, right? He said, but the reality is he's learned I've got to sound like a broken record. When I go on talking about something that's really important for all the firm, I've just got to stay straight to the words because if I shift, I've got, to your point, I've got people going Googling and looking up and they go, what's he
Yeah.
mean by that? What do you say over there? It's slightly
Yeah.
different over there.
Yeah.
And he
What
said,
does that
it's
mean?
not intentional at
Yeah.
all. And you
Yeah.
say off the cuff, yeah, you might have done it to kind of like, it's a little bit different. You just
Yeah.
can't do it. And I was like listening to him going, wow, like he's been in that top job for a long time. That's a really interesting observation that you have to hold the line because the impact is on the leaders below you because then the leaders below you, they have their people coming to them going, oh, well, you said that, but actually we just listened to this town hall and blah, blah, blah. So
Exactly.
that's a really good one. Yeah, I think that's interesting. And the other one is you're really trying to your point, which we started off this podcast with, which is you're developing leaders, like you're developing your people. Well, if your people are actually leaders, you're there developing them as leaders, right? Not developing the followers to become leaders because, well, it's a different ballgame. Well, I don't understand why it's not taught enough. I honestly don't see a lot of focus on leading leaders. That's sometimes I think people think it's an assumption, like that, like people in culture and L&D think, oh, they're really smart. They're at this level now. They don't need any more help. I think that yes, they
Yeah, but
do.
they need the most help, right?
They
Yeah,
need
when
the
you reach
most
that
help.
that kind of middle-ish level and yeah, so
To go next level. And I think in your book, so if you're a leader that are listening to this and you're in that space, honestly, I'm starting again, go get Lorraine's book because you cover off a lot of things in there. And what I love about that, Lorraine, is you cover off things in there that maybe a leader is in that position, but maybe just doesn't want to go to ask for some more help, right? There's some great stuff in your book that you can get a kickstart or at least fine tune where you actually want to get more help in. So I love it. Um, Now, LinkedIn, Lorraine, I'm going to get you. What are you up to now on LinkedIn? How many followers do you have on LinkedIn now, Lorraine? I'm going to embarrass
I'm
you.
at over 326,000 now.
I say it to people, and they're like, "I'm talking to Lorraine." I go, "Oh, Lorraine Kelly, yeah, I've heard of her. Yeah, she's got like three." I go like, "She's got like three," and they expect me to say it's like 3,000. I go, "She got 326," and they're like, "I won't say what they say, Lorraine, because they can't swear." But that's basically it's like WTF. What the? How you got that following? Tell me, what do you think the three secrets to that following are? I don't know if I know following's not everything, but you've done an
For
amazing
sure.
job. But tell me about that
So
following.
yeah. So one, it took a long time, right? Like I created my LinkedIn when I was in college. I ended up working for LinkedIn as a founding editor. So I was part of the team that brought content to the platform, which of course was great. Getting comfortable posting regularly. And then there was actually a little period of time where I took a hiatus from LinkedIn. After I left LinkedIn, I was like, oh, I don't know like what I talk about outside this company. So there was like a whole like personal brand, career branding issue, identity crisis that I had to come figure out. And then it was when I joined Prezi that I thought, okay, I want to start posting about me doing speaking, but I don't want it to be all promotional. So I need to figure out what else I like to talk about. So I mean, consistency and keeping up with it is huge because LinkedIn doesn't give us those dopamine hits that like an Instagram
Right.
or a TikTok does. It is harder to build up an audience and to get that engagement. And so it can be super easy to give up and just say, oh, this isn't working. So I think sticking with it is really key. And you're gonna have some posts that maybe go viral, and then you also have some posts that don't, and that's okay. Like you just keep going, right? When you start posting enough, you start caring less about the things that didn't
Yes.
do well. I would say building connections is really powerful. So like you said, Rob, like follower count is great, but who are you meeting on LinkedIn? So you and I met through LinkedIn, right? Like you can meet
Mm.
so many amazing, smart, fun, like cool people through LinkedIn if you're willing to create a strong LinkedIn presence and then willing to take that chance and maybe send a DM and just let them know
Right.
that you'd be interested in chatting. And through that, then people start knowing who you are as a person. You get more followers and that's I think actually the best part about LinkedIn, not necessarily like the content piece, it's the relationship piece. And then comments are really underutilized. So if you're nervous about posting any of the listeners here, I would start commenting first. It's a wonderful way to develop your voice, get your insights out there. You will still grow followers that way. Just remember with your comments, aim for at least 15 words because great post, very interesting. If I see a comment like that, I don't know anything about you, but if you say great post and I would add X, Y, and Z, or interesting post, like have you thought about this? Oh, now I'm getting to learn about you, and
Yes.
maybe I'll click through your profile and just see what you're about, and maybe give you a follow. So, obviously a lot more you can do, but those are, I think, some of the highest like leverage points and some of the biggest benefits to being on LinkedIn.
I come across people who I rate really highly, and I talk about this, and they go, "I'm just so scared of doing anything. So scared of doing anything." And I said, "But just make comments. Surely you read things, and oh yeah, I read things. I really want to make a comment,
Yeah.
but they're frightened to make a comment. What would be your suggestion for people like that?"
A lot of the times it's because, yeah, it's tied to our professional identity. We want to sound smart. There's also sometimes like the flip side where people are thinking, oh, I don't want to become like a LinkedIn influencer or a content creator. Maybe it's cringy. But what I think it really boils down to, just from talking to a lot of different
Mm.
audiences, is people have something to say, but they put so much pressure on themselves to think that, oh, it has to be this unique thought or it has to be so smart and so clever. And what I tell people is nothing is really original on LinkedIn. Hopefully that alleviates some pressure. Like everyone's talking about similar things, but it's different in the way that, oh, here's my story and here's how I've positioned it, or here's the acronym I created around concepts that other people have talked about. Like I say, like there's so many people on LinkedIn talking about presence, communication, leadership management, all topics that I speak on. But people follow me perhaps because they connect to me as an introvert, or they like my background or my story, like having been in tech and starting my own business now, or they like that the way I present information is very tactical and very clear. So just yeah, it's just I think we would just put too much pressure on ourselves to make it perfect, but it doesn't have to be. And there's going to be many competitors out there and people talking about similar things, but nothing's groundbreaking. We're all just putting our own spin on it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good part, isn't it? Just to take the heat off. It's a little bit like the Gen Z question I asked you earlier. I think it actually
Yeah.
applies to all generations. We get a bit
Hmm.
kind of nervous about it, or how might I be perceived? I think we just got to look think about the contribution you're making. If it's a great comment and you've got some thought leadership, just put it out there. I think
Yeah.
that you kind of I flip it the other way. Maybe because I'm older, but I just like if I think it's valuable, why should I hold it in? Because then no one gets to share it,
Yeah.
and it might spark a bigger conversation. But I do understand how people struggle sometimes to get over that hump. But what I do find is when they
Yeah.
do start commenting, and
Yeah.
they start to comment more, and it's like they go, okay, that wasn't so
Mhm.
bad. Like actually, someone responded, someone liked it or
Yeah.
entertained the question.
Hmm.
So I think if you're out there and you're not posting just yet, someone else is already posting. Lorraine's doing it 5 times a week. I'm doing it 4 times a week. Jump on, jump on. You touched on TikTok a second ago and Instagram. Are they also channels that you're focused on, or is it mainly around LinkedIn for you?
So LinkedIn's definitely my main channel. I am starting to be a little bit more intentional with Instagram. TikTok, I haven't even touched yet, to be honest. LinkedIn is already just so much work,
Mm.
and you want to go where your audience is, right? And I'm sure there's people who would enjoy seeing me on TikTok, but LinkedIn is really where I've spent the most of the time. I work with a lot of enterprises, so LinkedIn makes sense for me. Maybe a little bit of Instagram, but who's to say in the future? Not opposed to it.
It's just interesting, isn't it? Here's one thing some of the Gen Zs have said to me is, yeah, we kind of think LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn, but we think most people on there are absolutely full of it. So we don't really hold a lot of credence in it. We go to Instagram first to see the real them. Then we might go back to LinkedIn. It's really interesting. They like their safety check as Instagram.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, which I know you've got a huge presence on Instagram as well. And so I thought that was really interesting. And this is coming from people who book us, so because like if a leader says to a Gen Z, in marketing or the EA or someone like that says, hey, this is Lorraine K. Lee, can you go and find out a little bit about her and see how we can contact her? They will go to Instagram first, right? And see there, and you've got a great presence. So, and then might go to LinkedIn. They'll actually go definitely rates like as high in that
Yeah.
particular user group. Um, TikTok, I'm not sure. I think TikTok's suffered a little bit because of the US and whether they're going to shut them down, keep it going. So I think a lot of people
Yeah.
went to Instagram because that wasn't. And that said, I've been doing work professionally with TikTok recently, and it's been really amazing. And I've been working with some corporates who are doing work with the corporate team at TikTok. And so their direction and where to go from a corporate perspective, with depending on the industry you're in, is fascinating. It's fascinating. The other tip I saw with a company I was doing work with, a fantastic group called Weller, are in the hair. They do hair color is their biggest thing. So they're one of the biggest organizations in the world in terms of salons. But all the staff there have a corporate link, a corporate Instagram. So it might be Lorraine at Weller Instagram, and so they post predominantly on Instagram. One, because it's a visual medium, so it works really well from hair color and styling and fashion.
Sure,
It's,
for
it's
sure, yeah.
awesome. But they also have their Instagram as well. So I say to people, where are your customers? Like, who buys from you? Like, where are they placed? And I think that's a really good answer. But I'm starting to see a little bit on the TikTok thing. So I'm fascinated. I reckon I'm going to see Lorraine Cayley on TikTok smashing it next year. I think 2026.
Tips
Is
from you.
Lorraine
You're
on TikTok.
yeah, you're more in that world, so I'll have to get some advice.
No, you're definitely going to be doing it. And let's talk about speaking for a second. You had a really good point, and which I loved, as always. But there was a great point you made about speaking. A lot of people say, look, reduce your slides down, keep it content short. And you were like, no, increase your slides. I'm like, wow. I came back to that chapter and I read it again. And I thought, yeah, that's actually a really good point. If I'm right, can you explain a little bit more about that, why you should have more slides? And I think you were saying it more in the context of virtuals, but I'd like to get your view on that.
I mean, I think it'd be virtual, definitely virtual, but also in person. So the reason I said to have more slides is because what a lot of people do is they, especially in corporate, they just put like everything. They should, like the text is so small, it's like the
Oh, yeah.
graph, and it's way
Yeah.
too much information on one slide. And then they're not even like fading things in. It's just everything's just on there. And while you're talking, everyone just reading while you're talking. And so in the book, I talk about movement as one of the best ways to recapture attention, to boost some dopamine in the brain, especially in a virtual environment, because we just expect so much movement, go, go, go on video. And so if you can make your presentation such that, oh, I'm constantly fading my points in. Oh, I'm doing one idea per slide, and then I go to the next slide and the next slide. Anytime you do a slide change, like just think back to a presentation that you've watched. If you're kind of tuning out, okay, they changed the slide. Oh, you're paying attention again, right? And so it's just
Right.
constantly that trigger to keep
Right.
people engaged. And so it's not more slides and a ton of content on each slide. It's
Right.
breaking up the
Okay.
content so that you're moving through it much faster. Yeah.
That's such great advice. I remember my days at HP, and one of my team were putting together a presentation. They had 60 minutes, and they were like, and I said, "How you going, guys?" And they're like, "Yeah, man, we're struggling. And I go, "Why is that?" And they said, "Well, we've got 60 minutes." I said, "Well, how many slides and what's your content look like?" And they said, "We're up to 50, but we just need another 10." I'm like, and they were really detailed slides.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we need 10. I'm saying, you're going for one a minute here. And they're going, yeah, because if we just keep pumping it through, we won't have to speak much. People just read. I'm going, I think we're going to have a chat about this. So I sort of came from that world, but I totally get yours, which is like that. And I think the combination of video, think about it, we're so used to video and seeing video, keeping the movement up, having the idea per slide, keeping them big. I think that's the other big one. And even more so on virtual, to your point. So, yeah, I really encourage that. So people, have a read of this. If you're presenting, there's some fantastic stuff Lorraine's got in her book, which comes from a true speaking professional, I might add. So this is stuff that's tried and true. So please have a look at it. I certainly picked up some great ones in that, and it made so much sense. I had a question for you, which was this. Now, I only thought of it this morning, so I'm throwing it in without notice. Was if you were starting this, and it's a little bit about AI, if you were starting your business in August 2025, would you do anything differently than when you did start it?
Yes. I would have brought on virtual assistants a bit sooner to help with things like design and, just kind of like the nitty gritty that, I should be spending time like talking to clients and speaking and all that. So, but it's hard because you're like, oh, I'm not making any money yet. So, but there's lots of really great talent out there, like in the Philippines, for example.
Yes.
That's not too expensive. So that would have been really helpful. You mentioned AI, creating, taking the time to sort of lay the foundation, I think, with the right tools or systems or processes, which I'm still, it's still always an iterative thing. And like, I just made my first full-time hire a few weeks ago. So like, we're kind of doing another revamp. So these things will change over time as the company evolves. But I mean, I guess even now, like I do want to get a little bit more knowledgeable in AI and figure out, how can I make things more efficient? So that's constantly a learning and process.
It's a good point you make. I remember Mark Andreessen, after he sold, they stole Netscape. So he founded Netscape with Jim Clark. After he sold Netscape and he was doing his next startup, similar question was asked. So Mark, what are you doing? What are you doing this time around? And he said, I've got my first two hires. What I learned, my first two hires this time around, one, a lawyer, because I'm doing so much stuff around patents and IP. And my second hire is a head of HR. And he said, because that really, I didn't, to your point, he said, even when he started Netscape, he said, we try to do too much ourselves. We need to bring people on. Then when we started to bring people on, we had to bring a lot on very quickly. And I lost all my bandwidth. And so his first two hires, head of lawyer, attorney, and then head of HR. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Anything on AI? Are you favoring any particular AI from ChatGPT to Claude to Gemini? Is anything that's kind of working for you?
I do use a lot of ChatGPT, but this is probably nothing new to you or your audience. You need to still have the skill set, right? So it's helping me rewrite emails. It's helping me write drafts of things. But I'll know if something doesn't quite sound right, or if it's not the tone that I want, or just something just sounds forced, or just not smooth, no flow. So you grain of salt when you use tools like that. That's the main one, actually, I use. I do experiment every now and then with some of the other ones, but ChatGPT has done a really great job just knowing who I am at this point. So it's kind of hard once you're in one to, I think, teach another one, right? And take that time to switch.
That's where I was getting to, yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. I did hear, this is in the zeitgeist, something actually this morning before I jumped on a call with you, is that overnight someone had posted about ChatGPT 5 that gave a response which no one had seen before. That even caught Elon Musk's eye, which it said, "I don't know. I don't think I can. I don't know, and I don't think I can help you with this answer or this question." I should say. And that's the first time. That's a really interesting breakthrough. It was on what did I say? I think it might have been on Instagram or LinkedIn. I saw it post up. It was overnight. Yeah, it's the first time anyone's seen a ChatGPT actually come back. So it's not hallucinating or not giving this stuff. It's kind of rare. It's actually come back going, "Don't think it's possible for me to answer this one. I don't think I can help you."
Do you remember what the topic was?
No, I don't.
Something obscure? Okay.
It wasn't actually, not really, no. It was actually someone using it and posted it. But it wasn't, it wasn't, I didn't think it was like too off the reservation. But it was an interesting kind of breakthrough it's saying that. So there we go. Lorraine, our time is almost up, which has been exciting. You and I could go on for another 2.5 years, not hours. Where can people find out more about you? What's the best place what's the go-to for Lorraine K. Lee?
Definitely on LinkedIn. Would love for all your listeners to connect with me. Let them know you heard me on this podcast. That would be great. Would love to say hi. My book, as you mentioned, thank you again for reading and grabbing a copy. The book is sold anywhere where books are sold. And I have a free weekly newsletter, Career Bites, bite-sized tips to supercharge your career in 3 minutes or less. So you can find that at lorraineklee.com/subscribe. And then any companies who are interested in working with me, you can reach out on my website.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Lorraine. It's been really great. And I said, LinkedIn's the first one. Lorraine's also, she mentioned before, she's on Instagram. If you want to set her out there. Get hold of the book. Definitely get hold of the book. Have a good read through that one. I'm going to do a little video on the book. I've been wanting to do it, but I wanted to finish the book first because I was going to do about 3 videos. I wanted to finish the book first, and I'm going to do a little snippet for you. But thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the It's All Possible podcast. You can contact me at rob@robhartnett.com or my website, robhartnett.com, or on LinkedIn. Remember to check out the previous seasons and episodes of the podcast and the show notes for more details on this episode's guest. For more inspiration, remember to check out the It's All Possibility playlist on Spotify, which contains a collection of upbeat, positive music I use for inspiration in my live performances. Until next time, live with passion and a perspective of possibility.